Oh, I got this Film Tools camera mount now, so it attaches, to the external body or to the inside of the glass or whatever you want, and you've got several axes of movement to mount the camera with its standard 1/4x20 bolt. So that's going to be awesome. Hard to see in the dark, but I got the visors mounted. Not sure I'm in love with the old school way of, having just the end point being the attachment. And modern visors are held in the center as well, and these things can move back and forth pretty damn easily and bounce around. So, him-haw. It is what it is. It's old school. You can see in there, I've pulled out the fuel gauge level sender, whatever you want to call it, and I'm just going to show you. So the old one, I've got a little bag here, just it smells a lot like gasoline, and wasn't sealing well. That's why there's that blue Permatex fuel sealant on the edges of it. But the mechanism with the resistor was getting old and ratty, and I was getting sort of inconsistent readings. So this is the new newer old replacement from VDO, and same part number, but it is a little different. Problem is, same connector, except it needs a right angle, which I think the European Gulfs and maybe later North American ones after 83 or 84 may have used. But it's a plastic assembly instead of a metal assembly. What I did is I hacked the connector, sort of ground off the end of it, folded the wires over, and I'm just letting this sealant get a little hard, and then that'll protect the connector that I've just modified. So now it sticks out at a right angle, so I can install this, and I've already test fitted it. It works fine, same resistance range, so my meter programming doesn't have to change. So just slamming that in. Well, I managed to yank out the servo without disconnecting the brake lines from the master cylinder, proportion valve, and all that stuff. I had enough flexibility in the way I'd routed it. So remember, this is a non-ABS 3rd generation master cylinder, and I just want to point out a few things. There was an incompatibility as far, I haven't got the new one yet, I'll get that Saturday, but the distance between the mounting flange and the back of the master cylinder piston is about 2 3/4 inches on the G3 Mark III non-ABS. So 2 3/4 inches there. And so let me just, squeezing around between cars here on a rainy late November Thanksgiving weekend. So going here and looking in here, the depth is just under 3 inches, like 2 15/16 inches. So there's 3/16 of an inch of gap. So this plunger has to move 3/16 of an inch times the leverage of the brake pedal, which is I think 4-to-1 or 5-to-1. So that's where I think most of my foot play was that I was complaining about, is you push your foot down and that 3/16 of an inch multiplies out to an inch by the time, or close to an inch, by the time you actually get that unit all the way this to start moving and contacting the back of the master cylinder. And you're feeling pressure in the brake because you're feeling the servo, the spring in the servo. So hopefully this is the problem. Hopefully when I get the Mark III non-ABS ETE manufactured servo, it'll be exactly the right matching depth. So we'll find out in a few days. No, a little product promotion for the Toyota. This is the stuff I'm going to use when I change the oil seal on the oil pan. You put some of this on each side of the rubber gasket, and it forms a rubber surface itself. Takes up any any variations in the pan. But it's pretty much impervious to not just oil, but you know, most chemicals. So I've used this when I put the fuel level sender back in. I put some of this on each side of the O-ring, the two surfaces that the O-ring touches, because I was getting some leaking. I'd fill the fuel tank 100%, and then it would kind of put pressure to push fuel out the top of the fuel tank there, that where the sender is, and not very pleasant when it leaks there. So I've got obviously the new sender, the new plastic VDO sender, which it's working, it looks good, it's functioning correctly with the ECU and reading correctly. But I put this stuff on as well and made sure that I was getting a full seal from this stuff as well. So there you go. That's all my crap I gotta get organized around here. But that stuff is better than this shit, which is the this stuff never hardens. So it says fuel resistant gasket dressing and sealant, the Permatech stuff. It's blue, semi-translucent, and it's like goo, and it doesn't seal. And under pressure, because it's not thread sealing, it doesn't even have a proper gasket surface. That this wasn't doing the job. It wasn't hardening. So hopefully the other stuff is gonna work. Well, I'm also doing some fan replacements. So these are small 10-inch sort of medium duty fans. Really surprised. They crapped out. I was running them at 170 Fahrenheit. Whenever the radiator fluid was at 170 Fahrenheit, I would turn the first fan on at 25% duty cycle and then slowly speed it up to 100%. And then at 180 the next fan would turn on and do the same thing. And the idea was just minimize current consumption. But these fans died. They don't like being run at that 25% duty cycle as far as I can tell. So I'm going to take them apart and find out what went wrong. They just make this horrible rattling, grinding noise, so that something bad happened to them. So got the new ones, put them in, and this is a pain to get the shroud out, but because everything is, now that I've got the whole engine assembled, you gotta pull it out from down in there with all those lines running, and you gotta get into the screws that are mounted in behind to like literally, it's just a shitty design. It's custom radiator, but basically here's the flanges, and yeah, you got to get through the radiator with a screwdriver and get the screws in and out. So I may come up with a completely different mounting method now that I've had to thrash today doing this. But anyway, I'm swapping fans and I'm swapping connectors and things, so I'm getting rid of these. These connectors are no good. I'm going to put weather packs on them. Alrighty. These two units, this one from a 16 valve Mark 1 and this one from the Mark 3, they're very, very close, other than the fact that the Mark 3's got the round end on it and I need to go to that end. So I'm going to just do what I did here. I'm going to just thread the end, cut it, thread it, and then I have an adjustable piece. So anyway, they're pretty much identical in terms of size. Just, ow, big piece of steel just hit my foot. Sorry, everything's a mess in here right now. Let's see. Anyway, they're same cross-sectional area, same plunger depth. Nothing is different. So anyway, I'm going to machine a small brass 3/16 spacer to take up any slack between the master cylinder plunger and this diaphragm, and then we'll see whether that stiffens up my pedal or not. But I end up with a new unit that hopefully isn't leaking, which is another reason for swapping them out. So there it is. It's again adjustable, but I've got it set up for 21 centimeters to the center of the eye from the surface here. And I'll actually adjust that in the car again so I get the pedal height where I want it. And I'll put this in and hopefully it's a lot tighter feeling. Like this one's like just sloppy, loose. It's kind of trashed, and the foam inside's all worn and everything. And this is like nice and stiff and kind of getting me hot. Anyway, so we'll see what it's like when it's in. And again, putting the spacer in there too. Well, I've got these number 12 M12 metric washers that fit nicely. You can see there's 2 of them in there. That's just a little less than just using 2 is just a little less than the gap between the master cylinder and this backing plate here. So I can put them in and out and see how it makes the pedal feel. So that's my next step, is getting this in. Okay, so here we are underneath where the pedal assembly is, and I'll show you. If you look up here, and you can see the rod move. So there's this little gap is still there before the servo and the master cylinder meet each other. So I'm going to put one more washer in there so that this thing is bang. It's like immediately on the brake the moment I push on that thing. Well, I've got it now so that if I push it down about a ½ an inch, the rear brakes are on, firm enough I can't turn the wheel. So I push on this brake pedal with a stick and then try to turn the rear wheels by hand. And it doesn't go. It's a tiny bit of movement. You can see it's just a tiny bit of movement now, and then bang, the brakes are on. So when the servo's running, it'll move down obviously with much less pressure, but we're going to have to road test this though and see how the brakes really feel. But hopefully this is going to make a big difference. So I'm ready to rock. Test the brakes here. They're already just the first couple taps. They're just way more sensitive right at that beginning travel. So I just touch it, and the car is already slowing down. Just literally a 1/4 inch of travel, and it's braking. So I made a huge improvement here. I did adjust the linkage length a little bit to get rid of that last little bit of slop, and so literally as soon as I touch the brake, now it's activating. So I got to take it for a bit of a drive here, and we'll see how she goes. It's the roads are just so disgusting right now in Vancouver, but what happens is the leaves fall, and then they eventually take the street sweepers around and they sweep everything out, and you get to a point where the roads are clean again, and then other than if it drops below freezing, which it doesn't do too much in the Pacific Northwest, but if it drops below freezing, and it's going to next week a little bit, then they'll throw some salt on the roads and fuck everything up. So I don't want to be out in those conditions. So we'll give this a little whirl here, and we'll check the brakes out a bit more. Oh fuck, the brakes are so much better. Oh my god. Okay, alright. Fuck, they're almost too sensitive. So here I am again. I had to bail on my last drive because the car was starting to experience self-braking. So after the car had driven for a little while, it was the master cylinder and because remember I put 3 of those washers in there between the piston for the master cylinder and the servo, and that was too many. So I pulled 2 of the 3 out. It was just basically I had no pedal pressure at all, but the car was starting to experience braking force. And it didn't happen for the first 5 minutes of driving, but after a couple of minutes of driving, I guess the fluid in the master cylinder or the piston repositioned itself, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm dealing with
with self-braking, so I was kind of almost overheating the brakes getting the car back to the garage. So luckily I wasn't too far away. So it's temporarily behaving itself right now. Let's see. Yeah, so anyway, I'll take it for a drive. We'll see how it feels and how it behaves. I've also backed off the minimum, like I have an adjustable setting here for how much servo vacuum to have, and the minimum setting I had was still too high in terms of the amount of assist. It felt wrong. It felt too soft in comparison to the other pedals in the car. So. Definitely feels softer now. Whether that's good or not, we'll have to see. But I will do some braking tests up ahead a little ways. So much snot. This is so much fun to drive this car. And it's just like, oh, it's just got that tightness to it. And I got windshield wipers that work, intermittent wipers that work, and they're programmable. And I've even got windshield wiper fluid now, so I can squeeze a little bit of fluid. Watch this, look at this, windshield wiper fluid. Oh. It's so good. It's becoming a real car. Although I do not like my floppy, these things are loose. I'm gonna have to deal with that. I'm thinking of getting a little bit of a Velcro tab or something to hold the tips nearest the mirror in place. So, okay, the car at this point was already starting to act weird. It's better now. Brakes are feeling really good now. So, alright, it's our turn. The other thing is that the Mark III servo, the back of the servo doesn't quite get up to the firewall. There's about a 3/8 of an inch gap that I had to use some closed-cell rubber foam and sort of jam a bunch of it in there and create a gasket around it so that it would seal it up and I wouldn't be getting engine noise and engine fumes and stuff into the passenger compartment. Hey, my fuel sender is working nicely as well. And the car is idling nicely at 1,000 RPM, and I've got my new alternator in there, and it's doing its thing. So I'm pretty happy. just my personal feeling. I want to have the brakes so that they kind of come on and they're strong right away, rather than easing into them. It's just a personal thing. So here's a little bit of a highway section up ahead here. Not much, but a little bit. Give you a little 0 to 60. So really bumpy here, so I'm not going to stand on it. That's about half throttle. So I'm going to try some braking here. Whoa, lost traction there. I think the rear's actually locked up before the front, so I have to be a little bit careful about that reversing valve. I probably have it. I think I have a little bit too much bias in the rear. Okay, so it's a sunny day today, and I have GPS, so I'm going to try to do an acceleration run, and we'll see how this goes. There's traffic and all that, and it's very cold outside. It's only 40-degree Fahrenheit range, so there's no traction with the tires, but we'll see. Here we go. Oh fuck, here comes some more cars. I'm starting from the side of the road, which is slippery, gravelly, so this is not going to end up very good. We'll give it a whirl. That beep 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 is my 7,400 RPM. It warns me I'm getting close to my shift point. Right. It's just, I need slicks and I need warm tires, so it's a pain in the butt. Okay, here we go. Oh shit. I have to work on the proportioning valve. I got sideways there. Okay, a little gentler. This is the same road I was driving in on the GTI yesterday, and we're getting a combination of snow and sleet, but it's dropping down well below freezing tonight, and there's a half a foot of snow forecast in another 48 hours, so we're into winter here for at least the next while. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. It's coming down hard now. Well, gentlemen, Mr. G-Tech, it is not living up to my expectations, so it's too bad. I had one of these years ago, a much earlier version, but
Had a clear sunny day yesterday. They said, well, you need a minimum of 8 satellites to get decent readings. Well, I thought I got enough satellites, and I tested or looked at my data, and it's garbage data. Doesn't make any sense. So I am going to send this back. I just went and got Summit Racing to give me a return authorization and credit, and I will step up to a much more advanced professional racing data logging computer for acceleration measurements, because it's a bit of a toy. And basically the problem with this, in addition, is the PC software is not available for this new version, so it's useless basically. I have to do all the analysis from looking at this tiny screen, and there's no export ability at all, so I can't even stick it into Excel and run charts and graphs like I used to in my old analysis. I even noticed it's got little tiny cracks around the bolts. Like they tighten the bolts up and then the plastic is cracked at each of these points. So don't know what's going on with these guys. It's too bad, because it's a great concept, and what you want to be able to do though is have an accurately calibrated 3-axis accelerometer and know exactly how it's positioned on the vehicle, and then be able to know exactly what you're measuring. And this thing is like, oh, it's all automatic, you can mount this in any position and it figures it out, and it just uses GPS to correct for everything. And this high frequency GPS, high resolution GPS, okay, great. Well, what if your high resolution GPS is not high resolution? And then all of the data is garbage, because it's relying on GPS to say, is it at an angle, is it crooked? I mean, it's trying to, it has to be able to figure a bunch of the stuff out in the background. And I'm used to manually calibrating, the vehicle being level, manually calibrating all the acceleration parameters, and then knowing exactly what's going on with the vehicle. And this is a bunch of phooey. So sorry to trash the product, but it doesn't get a seal of approval for me, and it's going back.